Hello and welcome to 10 Minute Takes. This is where we give you the rating first, then we discuss what we liked and didn't like about the film. Today's film is Mandy. It's a new Nicolas Cage film that came out on VOD and in limited theaters. We're going to change it up for this one. We're not going to rate this first. We're going to talk about this film because this is not a normal movie. If you want, in the description below, I have a link to the trailer. You can check the trailer out, and if you watch that and go, wow, that looks weird. It is 100 times weirder than what the trailer is. So, hold off on your rating. We're going to talk about this because there's a lot to unpack with Mandy.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about it. Mandy tells the story of a couple that looks like they live in the woods in 1983. Nicolas Cage starts out in the film, looks like he's a lumberjack of sorts, works for a lumber yard. His wife works at a gas station. She's also a illustrator. She does paintings. And they come across a cult, and the cult leader sees the wife and goes, I have to have her. And then the cult goes off, kidnaps her, and then when she rejects their sort of they tried to inseminate them into the cult. When she rejects them, they burn her alive in front of Nicolas Cage, and they stab Nicolas Cage in the stomach and leave him for dead. At that point in the film, that is the first hour of our movie.
How long was the actual film?
It's 2 hours. So what I described right there, them as a couple, you meet the cult kidnaps them, they reject them, murder, and then Nicolas Cage is left to die. And the thing about this film is that it's heavily influenced by early 80s, late 70s horror science fiction. And there's a lot of imagery in this that looks like it's pulled straight out of films that I know. And I think that this is a film that is for a very specific audience. And I think the very specific...
Before you say something, can I say something? Before you get into that it's for a very specific audience, I felt that it was a very artsy film, and I am not going to be able to appreciate this film like you can.
The influences that this film takes its inspiration from is films like Hellraiser, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Blade Runner, The Hills Have Eyes,
Yeah, but I enjoy
Texas
those
Chainsaw
films.
Massacre.
It was just all of those films in one.
2001: A Space Odyssey, Heavy Metal. So if you watch those films and you go, oh, I love those films that are like weird, crazy, out there, sort of horror, science fiction. Blade Runner is also in there. That this might be a film that those people can enjoy. So for instance, the design of the biker gang that kidnaps Nicolas Cage and his wife. I mean, they look like they're straight out of Hellraiser. They live at Crystal Lake, Friday the 13th. The way that they bask these scenes in these red neon lights, very reminiscent of the dream sequences from A Nightmare on Elm Street with the red lights beaming through the factory that Freddy lives at in the nightmares. It is also paced very much like 2001: A Space Odyssey, where 2001: A Space Odyssey, the first large section of that movie is just apes in prehistoric times. In the first 20 minutes, these apes find bones, and they start using these bones as tools. And then they turn the tools into weapons to fight each other. That's the first 20 minutes of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and that's very much kind of how this film is paced. There's probably a good, I want to say the scene where they try to assimilate Nicolas Cage, or at least Nicolas Cage's wife, into the cult. It's probably a 10-minute sequence that is in monochrome red. Everything is just red. There's a monochromatic paint palette to this film. And I feel like when we get into these certain sections of these neon lights, these red basked cinematography colored scenes, we've almost entered a different plane of existence. It's almost like the director's like, hey, we're not going to somewhere that doesn't really exist. We're traveling through time and space to experience something that we don't experience in the normal world. And he bounces between this sort of metaphorical space and time to then snapping back to reality. With an example would being when like Nicolas Cage goes into the bathroom after he escapes, and he starts guzzling down I think it's a bottle of vodka, and he's just screaming. The whole neon light that goes away. The whole neon lights, the ride goes away. We're back to reality. It looks normal, and what we are seeing is a very real interpretation of this character's pain. And I feel like when we're into like these scenes that are masked in red, those scenes just might be a metaphorical experience of something else that might be happening. Those scenes might not even be real.
Like, I'd have to say that when we finished the movie, I felt very uneasy. And I felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was not a film for me. I don't appreciate the film like you do, and I don't think I ever would be able to. I'm not saying that it's a bad movie. I'm not saying that it's a great movie. I'm just saying that I can't see it in your lens. So I'm having a hard time, following along with this conversation, because you're going after everything as a whole, and all of these movies, you're basically saying that it's just stuffed into one movie. And for someone who's not a moviegoer and doesn't know all of that, you kind of just sit there feeling like, what? Like,
that's very perplexing.
Why is this happening? I don't understand. I see how people can find this movie very interesting and very engaging, but for people who are not super into film, I don't know if they would get it or appreciate it as much as people should. I'm saying it should be a film that is appreciated. I'm just saying that not everybody who doesn't look at movies as art. Like, it took me a long time to appreciate movie as art. There are a lot of movies and films that come out, like independent film, that I can really appreciate as art. And I get that this is very artsy, but I can't make this connection that you're making right now, because I don't have that mentality when I see movies. Yeah. But I'm not saying I don't appreciate artsy movies, because I do, and I do. I can really take a movie and really appreciate it and feel connected and invested. But those type of movies that I feel connected and invested in that are independent movies are more emotional movies, more real world connection movies. Not these types of movies where it's more scientific. It's just not my style. Mm-hmm. I can appreciate it.
But I mean, that's what this film is. It's not a film that, when it's presenting things to you, it's not presenting things to you in a realistic realm.
No, I understand, but I'm
like when they take there's like this rock flute thing, and they go out in the woods and they blow it into the woods, and all of a sudden there's like these red lights that beam through the woods, and all of a sudden there's just like, we're just masked in red, and then this biker gang comes out. It almost looks like a portal to hell opened up. And it's open for interpretation. I don't think a portal of hell opened up. I just think that at those moments, some other plane of existence has then entered into this film, and things are happening that might not actually be happening, but things that are happening are being presented to us in this manner.
Yeah, I understand. And I didn't get that. I got that there were other things involved, and for me, it was just so far-fetched and so strange in my world. Yeah. That I couldn't appreciate it like it should have been. It should be appreciated.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key words about this film, is that if you can appreciate this film, it's hard to enjoy. I appreciated it. I saw all the influences from like the Stanley Kubrick, the Ridley Scott, Wes Craven, John Carpenter. He had like all the sensibilities of those guys just like wrapped into one insane, crazy film that is, for me, hard to enjoy. It was easy to appreciate because I could see where he was coming from with a lot of things, but like the first hour of the film is incredibly slow. Like, it was almost painfully slow. And then the second half of the film is just Nicolas Cage goes on a rampage and goes after all the guys that did that to him, which the second half to me was far more enjoyable, just on, I'd say, a kinetic level.
There was. I agree with that. I think there were really good scenes that were in the movie, but I'm just not really going to be the person to have this kind of conversation with.
And so this particular director, this is his second film. His first film was even weirder and stranger than this one. He dialed it back for this film, which is really...
Almost reminds me of Glow director and the movies in that show. The movies he used to...
That's a good connection, yes.
Like, now that you say that, that reminds me of, like, The World of Glow.
Yeah.
The director.
The TV show. Yeah, from Glow. The Mark Maron character on Glow.
Yeah.
Kind of like the movies that he
Like,
would
it's
do.
just not for everybody.
Yeah. And they're weird, they're out there, and this is very much a director that was allowed to do whatever he wanted.
No, I would say that I think moviegoers and movie buffs are going to enjoy it, and they're going to be able to sit down and have a really good conversation about it. And then you have people like me that's just kind of like, well, that was weird.
Yeah, if you want film for entertainment, I don't think this falls into that bag. I would consider this sort of a film school film. So like if you're someone that's in film school and you want to really like dissect and pick apart what a film is, what all the images mean, the influences, compare and contrast. This is very much one that you could do a film analysis on, a very deep one.
I'm sure you could. I can see that for people who are really invested in films like this.
With another thing that's like about this taking place on another plane is at the very last shot of this film, which there is a post-credit scene. So after the credits roll, there's one more shot. There's one image that we see at the end of the credits, which then leaves the film open up for interpretation. And like the interpretation is what we just watched real, or at some point in the film did we enter into someone's imagination, and are we experiencing someone from someone else's like mind? It's like when the film goes red, when the film is bathed in neon light, are we now in someone else's story? Like, are we in a story within a story?
Yeah.
Essentially. And then when we go back to the real world, are we then back to the regular story? And then when we go to the neon bathed lights, are we then going to the story within the story? So that's another aspect of this film that I think is up for analytical discussion. Which I'm not going to give away what the final shot is kind of interesting. Now we're going to go ahead and give it a rating. We're not going to do like the content or anything. I'm going to give it two different ratings. One, if you want films as entertainment, this is a pass it. You will not like this film if you just want like a straightforward story. But if you're someone that's really into really weird out there films, like I mentioned, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Heavy Metal, the animated film. I don't know if I would say Blade Runner is really out there, but in its stylistic approach, it's kind of out there. So if that's your bag, I think, yeah, check this out. I think this is to see it.
I said pass it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I said pass it just because it wouldn't be fair for me to say a wait for it or a see it because I didn't understand it like you did.
That's it for this episode of 10 Minute Takes. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. We have more coming. We are gearing up to launch our gaming channel, or at least our gaming part of our channel.
Super
I've had
excited.
some technical difficulties with that, so hopefully we can finally get it rolling. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you like this discussion on Mandy, a little untraditional, but I wanted to give something an untraditional sort of discussion on this film because the film itself is very untraditional. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. It is unique. It is unique. I can only pick like little movies here and there from the past that has influenced this, but this is 100% its own beast. So thank you for watching. Check it out. If you saw Mandy, let us know what you thought, and we'll discuss it. All right? See you next time.